Welcome everybody to I, the Serpent Tarot, for another pick a card reading. So today's pick a card reading is looking at what it is about you, your sort of special skills, your personal presence, your looks, your personality, whatever it might be, that makes people jealous of you. And having identified that, because sometimes we're not even aware of the fact that we have qualities that people could be jealous of. We may not even see it in ourselves. Once you're more aware of that, how to identify when you are being subtly or not so subtly influenced by people who are jealous, to dim your light in some way, or to think less of yourself or something along those lines. And this is not to say that, people in your life who are doing this are bad or evil in any inherent way. It's just this usually springs from insecurity, and understanding those dynamics can help you know when a critique that comes to you is relevant and useful and you can learn from it, and when it actually comes from something like jealousy or competition. So the whole intent of this reading is to really focus on what it is about you that you may or may not be aware people can be jealous of, and then we'll have a look at what, if anything, is happening in that space in your sort of material world, what could be happening energetically or spiritually, and look at some advice from Spirit about how to deal with all of those, whether they're happening at the moment or whether you come upon them every once in a while in your life. So that's what we're going to look at. But before I go into the pile choice, there's just a couple of things I wanted to say. Firstly, I want to do a really big shout out and thank you from the bottom of my heart to Cindy from the channel Awakening to Spirit. A couple of days ago, she did a community post where she talked about some of the sort of newer tarot readers on YouTube that she enjoyed, and she included me. And I'm so humbled and so grateful to you, Cindy, if you're listening, and to Cindy more generally if she isn't hearing this video, for that incredible generosity. I'm so pleased that you enjoy my readings, and I'm so grateful that you would give me that shout out. I do know that after you did that, a number of people did come and view my videos and possibly potentially subscribe as well as a result of that, because they let me know in the comments that you'd recommended me, and that was how I became aware of the community post. So thank you so much. That is so generous that you did that. As I say, I'm very humbled, and I wanted to announce my gratitude for that generosity on my channel. I did think about just saying thank you on the community post, but I felt like this was actually a better way to say to all my people who come to me, if any of them are not aware of your channel, that your channel is wonderful. I went to look at it and really enjoy it myself. So I really just wanted to publicly say thank you. So I hope you do hear this, and if not, I hope that people who came here via you might let you know. So thank you again. The other thing I want to say is, for those who've asked, I am getting very close now to having everything set up for the personal reading service. I'll do that through Etsy, as I've said in a couple of other videos. I will do community posts around that when it is set up, and I will put the details in my about page on my channel and in video description boxes going forward. But at this point, my working date for launching it is the 10th of February Australian time, so probably sometime on the 9th of February in the Northern Hemisphere. The only thing I don't know at this point, I've watched lots of videos on YouTube about setting up Etsy, so I think I know what you do when you get in the back end and you do it. But if it turns out there's any delays because of getting, bank accounts authorised or whatever else you might need to do, sort of authenticated, not authorised, authenticated, that may put it back by a day or two. I don't expect that to happen, but if it does, it'll only be holding it up by a day or two. So if you have been interested in that, keep an eye out. It's coming along soon. And I should also say, this hasn't happened to me yet, but I know it happens to a lot of tarot readers on YouTube, and will probably happen to me at some point. There is a unfortunate thing where there are people who are scam artists and who impersonate tarot readers, and they directly DM people, or they go in comments and offer them readings and so forth. I will never do that. The only way that you can ever get a reading through me is either through Etsy, or if I do a public personal reading free giveaway as I did in January this year, because as I said there, I probably will do that every once in a while on this channel. But that's the only way. I will never solicit you to to have a reading from me. If you are one of the people who emailed me to ask about this, I will email you personally to let you know when the Etsy store is set up, but there is no requirement, there is no expectation on anybody, even if you've emailed me about it, to come to me for a reading unless you want to. This is a free channel. It is for anybody who wants to come and see the collective readings, but it's just that there will be this potential to get a personal reading if you want, but it will be at your choice and your action. It will never be something that I either expect of you or that I chase people up for. So, okay, so now let's move on to talking about the pile choice for the reading. So today we have 3 different readings to choose from. So I'll put down the numbers 1, 2, and 3. I'm using different tarot decks for each reading because I find that people sometimes connect to particular decks or particular imagery. And for each of the decks that I've chosen for this particular set of readings, I've taken out the Sun card because I thought it was possibly the best distillation of what it is that would make people jealous of you. Your capacity to shine, the places that you are almost innocently and happily blessed by the universe, and the way that you really stand out, because that's normally what makes people jealous of us. It's also true that when we are in the sunshine, we may not see the shadows to the degree that they are there. So this is not meant to be a reading that's going to be really negative, but it is really focusing on what you need to know. Because as I say, most people who are jealous of you won't mean harm. You'll just understand something about their own insecurities. Though if something comes up that suggests there's anybody who's more malefic, I will let you know as the reading comes through. So the decks and the choices are, for the first reading, for pile number 1, I have the Sun card here from the Flights of Fantasy Tarot. For deck number 2, I have the Sun card from the Crystal Unity Tarot. And for pile number 3, I have the Sun card from the Dark Mansions Tarot. I've also used different sacred symbol tokens. So the Tree of Life for pile 1, the Pentacle or Pentagram for pile 2, and the Flower of Life for pile 3. So hopefully the colours, the symbols, the decks, or you may just always go for a particular number, whatever works for you. And if you need to pause the video to contemplate it, by all means do that. But when you know what reading or readings, and by all means go to more than one if you feel drawn to more than one, when you know what reading or readings you want to see, then the timestamps is always in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile number 1 to your reading. So this first set of cards is to give me an idea about some of the areas that you really shine in and how that may make people jealous. And then also the first sort of indication for us about how that might be framed, or how you might be criticised or whatever by somebody who is actually jealous. So firstly for you, you are very authentic, very free. You are someone who may be envied by others, either literally because you get to travel a lot and you get to be really true to who you are, with Baba Yaga around authenticity and the fierceness. I mean, that's a very fierce goddess who's able to be authentic, able to stand on her own. With the Traveller card and the Rebel, I think that there is a side of you that is very, very true to who you are, will not stick around in a situation that is not working for you. You have a lot of courage and a lot of capacity with Set here around chaos. You're not afraid of the debris if you have to move on, if you reinvent yourself, all of those sort of things. You're very much with cardinal signs here, and you may be Aries, Cancer, Libra or Capricorn, or have it strongly in your chart. But even if not, the cardinal signs are all about initiation, assertion, leadership, all of that kind of thing. You are very, very much your own person. And I think that may threaten people quite often. They may literally see you as someone here who runs their own business, or at least is very, very free within the organisation they're in, gets to move and do what you want. As I say, literally some people may be jealous of you getting to travel, see the world, or that kind of thing. And they probably would like to say that you are more about chaos and about yourself, but there is a very down-to-earth side of you as well, and a very empathic one with Neptune. So it's hard for people to fully criticise you for this, but there is a sense, I think, that people feel you get to break the rules. You get to write the rules almost. You may well be the boss sometimes. Maybe it's saying that for some of the people who are jealous of you, it may be people who work for you, either as an employee, or if you are in an organisation and you've just reached a level where you have a bit more autonomy, they may feel and be jealous of you because of that, because you are able to set more of the rules and so forth. If you haven't got to that point in your career, there's something in your nature that's going to take you there. This reading is not just about what's happening at the moment, but also a pattern that is likely to be in your life. Because you are so much who you are, and you're very, very in tune and psychic, I think, around the environment, able to pick up the environment. You won't always fit in, but you aren't going to really care to some extent. And for you, it's going to be down to what is the material outcome, what can I do, move on, what's going to work for me. You come very much from that place. And as I say, you're comfortable in chaos, which a lot of people aren't. A lot of people find that very, very threatening. So you could be someone who is a change agent in an organisation, someone who does run their own business, someone who only works when they feel they need the money and the rest of the time travels the world because they're all about being who they are rather than sort of just fitting in with a system. There's something very, very strong about you. So things around you that people would be jealous of is that degree of comfort within your own skin, the authenticity that you have, the capacity to fight if you need to, but also just to move on, to keep sort of like keeping things started and moving and initiated and so forth, but in a very practical way. You're not likely to be in a situation often in your life where you don't have material means. This doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a multimillionaire, though some of you could be. There is certainly an iconoclastic, revolutionary, dialed into the zeitgeist leadership energy here. So it's possible that you could literally start an empire with these sorts of energies and be able to take it through the changes to be true to what it's trying to be, but to also evolve. So that's certainly possible. But I am getting that quite a few of you, it's not really about that. Even your attitude to things like material outcomes is very down to earth. I literally think some of you might go, I will work when I need to work and I'm going to be free the rest of the time, because there's a very strong freedom energy here. And so I think some of you may literally be sort of seasonal workers, for instance, work when you need to do and travel. You may travel and do various sort of jobs in various countries to pay the basics or whatever, so that you can enjoy the world and enjoy finding out who you are by just being very true to that rather than to an organisational structure. People are jealous of this because it's a lot stronger than they normally are. Most people do find it hard. Most people will fit in more with the structure rather than being true to themselves. They think this is risky. They would look at you and think you take risks that they don't want to take. Now, the shadow of this, where you may find in your life you get criticism and so forth that is coming from jealousy, they're likely to say things like, do you see things through? Because there's a sense here that you're about the beginning, the chaos, throwing everything up in the air, and then you may move on. People may say, oh, you couldn't handle this particular environment. In actual fact, that's projection. You could handle it, but you did decide at some point it was no longer serving who you were and who you wanted to be. You are far more comfortable in the rigours of sort of office politics or politics itself or any of those sort of things than the average person, but you just don't take any prisoners and you're just not interested. If something doesn't fit your ideals, if something doesn't fit your belief structures and your authenticity, you're not going to hang around, but people will sometimes say, oh, this person, could be a flight risk from an organisation, or, doesn't necessarily stay, like those are the sorts of things where the projection of their own fears could come on you. The other thing that they're likely to say is that maybe you're too material. It's too much around the material. So even though I do think many of you might only work when you feel you need to meet your basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs, sort of security, safety, all those sort of things, the rest of the time you're more about self-actualization. I think that your ability to do this, your ability to deal with difficult things, your ability to be very practical and to be your own master could be reflected back on you as being too focused on that, or too bossy, or not able to fit in. So if you understand the structure of this, which is that the things that really make you strong and make people jealous of you are also the things that they will turn on their head to try and critique, to say it's something else. So your fluidity, your flexibility could be shown to be not sticking at something, which is not true. Your sort of iconic sort of rebellion and authenticity could be said, oh, well, they just don't fit in, they just don't like authority, they don't like taking instruction, they don't like feedback. Your practicality could be said, oh, they're very, very focused on the material, etc. And that's not true, because you're very much sort of connected sort of psychically and to ideals and so forth, and your rebellion comes from ideals. But that's just to give you the sense. Or even chaos, they may think everywhere this person comes, they start so many new things, they throw everything up in the air and they confuse everybody. So they're likely to be the ways that you hear it in one way or another from people. But it's your strength, your authenticity, and your capacity not to take any prisoners makes people very jealous of you, and they will reflect back that insecurity. In fact, you're one of the most classic cases in a way of what this reading was about, because it is those sort of energies that often do bring out the insecurity. So and people will project on you. So given that, let's have a look with the tarot about what is going on. And I'm looking at this both in what is happening at the moment with sort of what I would call external or material aspects of this. So this is things that you would sort of see because of things that are done, things that are said to you, done, decisions that are made around you, whatever it might be, where there could be jealousy operating. And then we're going to look spiritually. We're going to look at what could be happening energetically, where people are thinking jealously about you, or resentfully or whatever, because there is a subtle spiritual thing that can occur, and you have different approaches for dealing with it. We'll look at general sort of like doing it in the 3D, and we'll also look at spiritual support that you might need as well. But firstly, let's diagnose what's going on. So to start with, what you would be probably aware of or see in the material world. Okay, so firstly what this is showing is that I think that you will see and hear things materially that have to do with this capacity to not dwell too long in what is anxiety provoking or what isn't working. When you have the Star and the Nine of Swords reversed together, that is suggesting to me that you do, for many people, at least initially, and for most people, unless they're jealous of you, in fact, you represent hope, you represent the new, you represent the way through. So the star, you are literally the star in a way. Wherever you go, you are the star, because you are the initiating force, you are the force for change, you are the force that can deal with the struggles of the world, you are the strong force and so forth. And you give hope to people when, with the Nine of Swords reversed, they are looking to come out of an anxious state and be able to make some decisions. So I think this is firstly saying that more often than not, your qualities will be admired rather than people being jealous. But what we do see is potentially a person or a type of person here. So in the center of all of this materially, your star shines and people come to you and people follow you because you can help them make material decisions. That down to earth sort of energy that you have and your capacity to deal with chaos and the new allows people to have a better fix on how to make decisions. Some of you could literally work in some sort of consultancy and you really just help people understand what isn't going right, what needs to change in an organization, for instance. Or it could be a health issue. You could work in health, and it could be helping people work out how to change their diet or their lifestyle. There's all those sorts of things. And where you start to see the impacts of jealousy around your capacity materially is somehow to do with the way that people respond to you. And it looks as though with the King of Wands reversed, this may be a person in your life at the moment, or it may be a type of person, as I say. That is someone who wants to be the star. You know, the King of Wands upright is warm and charismatic and charming and really pretty much a star that's got all the sort of creative, fiery energy of the Wands. When reversed, it's someone who is not necessarily feeling as comfortable in their power or their charisma, may feel that they have been overshadowed by you in some way, but they're likely more often than not to be someone who is at a similar level to you organisationally or in university or college or whatever it might be. It's likely to be a peer. You're more likely to have this issue from a peer because you come across to me like a king, a kind of a combination between the King of Swords and the King of Wands, actually, but both upright is the energy that you give off. The King of Swords is this sort of very clever, quick energy and capacity to sort of like navigate and connect through Neptune. There's even a little bit of the King of Cups there. And then the King of Wands is the sort of charismatic person that creates the star energy. So it's people who probably are peers, people who could be friends, who have similar sorts of ambitions, similar sorts of values. It's more likely, I think, to come up in your career or your vocation than anything else. And it's got to do with people who are not as naturally a leader as you, but want to be. And they're likely to be people who cause a lot of chaos themselves. So say you, and this is just an example, say you were a consultant who came in to help an organisation diagnose what was going wrong, why profits were going down or whatever. You are likely to find this sort of person who is not an authentic leader, and they're likely to be causing the chaos that you then are healing. And I think they're likely to be jealous of you, even if they need to use you as a consultant. You are likely to find that maybe they push back even when you have really good outcomes and so forth that you are suggesting out of it. So it's someone who is jealous of your leadership. And I do think it's by and large going to be peers. And they may cause chaos. With the Ten of Swords reverse, it is very much likely to be things they say about you. You're going to hear about it. You're going to see that they do a lot of, as I say, office politics, gossip. If it's in a friendship circle and it's sort of someone who wants to be the alpha in that group and you're actually the natural alpha because you are a natural alpha, then they're likely to gossip about you behind your back. And they can do damage with the Ten of Swords there. They can, because words move very quickly and they might trigger this anxiety. They might try and make people doubt what you're saying and whether or not, as I say, you'll see it through and all that kind of thing. So it's likely to be, as I say, a peer. It's likely to be someone who wants to be the leader where you're the natural leader, and it's likely to be someone who uses gossip, innuendo, communication and so forth, the things of the mind. They're not really appealing to the emotions of people or their creative instincts or using charisma, because this person or this type of person doesn't have the charisma that you have. They're using sort of facts and data, but they're distorting it. So that's the thing to watch out for. To watch out for people who are questioning the data and the sustainability of what you're saying in whatever this thing might be, friendships, work, whatever it is, because you are actually far more down to earth than they're giving you credit for. This is much more their own insecurity. So that's what to watch out for on a material level. Now let's ask what you would need to watch out for on a spiritual level. So this is really the kind of energy that might be sent to you and why and how it might feel when people are jealous of you, but they're not necessarily a peer, so they can't necessarily sort of influence things just through their words. It's more sort of resentment. It's more that kind of spiritual, energetic stuff that can come directed towards you. So let's see what Spirit wants to tell you about that. Okay, so I'm firstly getting that if you have jealousy on a spiritual level being sent towards you, you're likely to pick it up in your dreams, I think. It's like sleep, and it may actually even affect your sleep patterns, I'm getting. You will be picking it up on an agitation in your mind that doesn't have facts behind it. You're someone who moves very fast and can really assess a situation very quickly. And I think you're used to your very smart mind being able to work out the facts. That's why these people using that really, they're not that powerful compared to you, particularly if you know and you're ready to deal with it. But because of that, it's like when you pick something up that's spiritual, that's more amorphous, and you will with Neptune as part of who you are, it's like that affects you firstly around mental unease. You will have a sense of mental unease. Something doesn't feel quite right. And I think I'm getting with the Ten of Wands a sense it tires you out, you sleep, but Spirit is actually drawing you into the sleep world to let you process what this is and see it and get to the Neptunian energy you have. Because you are very much in the world and very earthy and very fiery and very action oriented, but with Neptune there, you're also very psychic. So I feel as though you have a sense of it. You'll pick it up in dreams. You may dream about people who are jealous of you, and they may seem very different to how they are in your day-to-day life, because we're really trying to pick up here the energy that is, as I say, simmering and not shown in the material, that you may even be surprised. So if you're starting to feel that and you dream about someone and it's very odd or their behavior is odd, it may be an indication that something like this is going on. It's very possible that it comes in relationships where there is some sort of romantic aspiration towards you, or it may even be that it sometimes happens that some of you end up with this sort of energy from someone who is a lover of yours, someone who you're in a relationship with, partly because, remember, if they're feeling insecure, part of what they get from you is, are you going to hang around? So you may, in fact, just be picking up anxiety about your commitment. So if you have that sense around, somebody that you're in a loving relationship with, it's just being aware of that and sensing that. And I'm getting, in fact, for some of you, if you're living with that person and there's a sort of like there's almost strange sort of times of silence or whatever, it may be even their restlessness in sleep that actually tells you something is going on. So that's very specific, but I think it is picking up that you will sometimes get that from people who want more from you than you are possibly wanting to give, or who think that you may rebel against any of the sort of more conventional things. And so if that's what they want in terms of relationship, but again, it's going to be subterranean because they're not necessarily going to want to upset the relationship just to show that. There is a possibility around this that there are people quite a bit younger than you that could resent something here. So I'm getting, it's going to depend what age you are. I mean, it could be that for some of you, you have siblings that have resented you, have been jealous of you, that thought that you potentially, say if you were the elder sibling and you got to go out into the world earlier than them, they may resent that, or they may think that you got material benefits with the Two of Pentacles that they didn't get for some reason. So for some of you, it's going to be something like that, and family, siblings, that kind of thing. For others, it may be younger people that you're working with who may feel that you got breaks or something like that. But it's likely to show with a kind of childish sort of energy. You'll pick it up as a simmering thing that is not ever going to be on topic. It's going to be on something else. It's going to be deflected, and it's coming from a kind of childish burgeoning. I'm actually getting, for some, there's actually the Page of Wands is deeply embedded in this King of Wands type, because they haven't really matured into the King of Wands. So for some of you, this is going to be the same person, but it's like some of what's going on may go back to even their childhood and so forth. It may be not really about you at all, but you trigger that because you trigger something from their childhood and so forth. And the other way that you're going to know something is happening is if you find a limitation happening on something material that doesn't make sense. So if you, for instance, were trying to sort of start up a small business, and you may with that self-employed, and you're finding that there were blocks that don't make any sense, it could be that there is that kind of spiritual energy coming towards you, particularly that kind of petulant energy. And so we will talk about spiritual ways to ward that off and keep that energy away from you and so forth. So I think for most of you, you'll pick it up in your sleep, in your dreams and so forth. It's likely to feel childish. There may be issues that are coming from people who want more from you than you are going to give, or think that you're going to move on. But you'll also see it materially because you're a very material person. So overall, mostly from peers, maybe from sort of siblings and so forth, or younger people around you, maybe an insecurity-based thing from sort of closer relationships in some way. But you're very psychic, and you'll pick it up and you'll see it, and you'll also be able to deal with it and unlock the blessing that comes with an Ace of Pentacles, or with any ace, to really start something up. So let's drill a little bit more into the types of personalities and why that might be jealous of you. And we're going to use a variety, including some of the decks that we've already used, but using them not about you, but using them about other people. And this may identify people in your life. We're going to use the letters, for instance, as part of sort of initials potentially, to let you know, particularly for this more subterranean stuff, what might be going on. But otherwise, it's more likely just to be types of people that you will encounter. And I'll be looking at it both through what it says about them, but also how they would respond to someone like you. So let's start with some various sorts of qualities from different decks. So touch. Okay, So with touch, I feel like this is very kinesthetic people. These are people who operate very much from their emotions and from what they feel. They're a very feeling oriented person. That's why it talks about sensitivity. They would probably find, because if they can't get to this Neptune side of you, that fiery sort of action, energy, fast-moving side may feel a little bit discombobulating to you. So people who are highly sensitive, and this may pick up something around closer relationships, may get jealous of you because they may feel like you are stronger in the world than they are, that you're able to look at things and do things that they can't. So there could be a kind of resentment. I mean, it's interesting. It could go either way. It could also be that they'd be a bit awe-inspired and want to be around you. But I think for some, it's their heightened sensitivity. So being aware of that, knowing that you're comfortable in chaos and moving forward, but not everybody is, and sort of using some of that empathy that you have with Neptune can help you deal with that person. But if they were going to act out on their jealousy, they're likely to say that you don't care enough about people's feelings. They or somebody else is likely to go into the detail and try and prove you wrong. I think that's kind of the energy, a bit like this King of Wands. It's like with sleuthing. They'll try and find the chink in the armor. They're looking for what's wrong in your argument. They're looking for what's wrong in you with that sleuthing sort of energy around it. So, and it could be even that they get a bit nosy. So if people really start asking you lots of questions about your life and they're not a close personal friend, it may be an indication that they're looking for the chink in the armor. Okay, let's see what else we get. Leo. Okay, all right. So this is picking up this sort of King of Wands type. I do think there's a lot that goes back to this King of Wands type. I do think that you primarily get jealousy from people who want your strength and want your charisma and want your action, but don't necessarily have it. And they want to be centre stage with Leo. They have very strong opinions. That's why they're likely to use opinions and arguments and so forth. So the ones who also want to be the leader, who want to be centre stage, you will naturally be that in whatever you do. Even if it's not in sort of like organisation and so forth, it's actually in that you're a performer, for instance, you're going to be very iconic and very different and able to move through and find what is true and truer to you. And that's kind of what Leo wants. But I feel like it's that kind of energy when it's not working positively, because Leo has some lovely aspects and very loyal, very sort of caring sort of sign. But I think when it's operating through jealousy, it's about you having too much of the limelight, and it kind of also fits with the red here. Like it's your energy, it's your passion. They probably think you're very, very attractive to others, and this in fact could be picking up people who are not your sort of significant other, but maybe ones who want to be as attractive as you or have the person that you're with or something. So there's that energy as well too. So it's very much people like you, but not at your level. That's what this is saying. Let's see what archetypes they might demonstrate. Okay, romantic and Libra. Okay, so these people, going back to maybe, you come across as not being sensitive enough. You don't care enough about feelings. You're all about action. You're all about leadership and so forth. And this is what the things that people who are jealous say. I'm not saying it's true of you. It's just how they would operate. They're likely to have high ideals about feelings over outcomes, over facts and so forth, though they can use their mind to try and bring a balance, or in fact to justify an imbalance whenever they want. But they are more for keeping everything in equilibrium than they are for change. So there's a very change energy around you. So again, if you went into an organisation, you're a change person, if they're jealous of the attention you're getting and the fiery sort of creative charismatic energy that you have, because there's a side of them that wants that, they're going to be likely to be arguing against the disruption, against the change. They're likely to use those sorts of arguments to say that you are not the sort of long-term stable person for this organisation. And again, I'm not saying that's true of you. I'm just saying how they're likely to do it. And if it's in a personal relationship, they're likely to say that you are too much about yourself and you're not about the romance and the caring of others. And again, I'm not saying it's true of you. just saying that that's the way that they're likely to romanticize other aspects or turn a kind of critical eye on you as to whether or not you are enough in touch with your feelings to, relate to people and so forth. All right, one last set of cards to see what else we have about the sort of people that get jealous of you. Okay, travel and adventure and guilty pleasures. Okay, so some of them, as I said right at the beginning, some of you may be in a career or have the wherewithal or whatever it might be to be able to travel, or you may not be as security conscious as maybe these people are, and you might be able to say, I'll work when I work and I'll be free the rest of the time. But these people also want to get out and be in the world, and they want adventure and so forth, picking up the Red, the Leo, the King of Wands. So again, it's people like you who get jealous of you, but they're not able to do it for some reason. They're less secure about themselves to be able to take the risks and so forth. They also like to just enjoy life. And I think they may think that you get to do it more. I just think that they're jealous of what they feel is your freedom and your authenticity. They're worried about how people would view them if they did what you did, if they were like you were. But they're definitely people who kind of aspire to a similar life, but they want to be seen as still very feeling and very balanced, and they are likely to try and say that you are very erratic and you go for change all the time and it's all about you. And that's not, as I say, the truth, but that's how they're likely to try and position it. All right, so if we have a good sense about, I almost forgot letters. So we're also going to just get some initials, just in case there's anybody in your life right now that you might think fits this. So we have P, F, O, M, R, and F. So F's important, F coming up twice. It's interesting that also spells form, and in some senses, form feels to me very earthy, very grounded, and the thing that maybe needs to change. So again, I'm feeling like the main criticism that you get when people are jealous of you is whether you are too much about the change and not enough about what follows the change, for instance. But otherwise, I think these are probably initials, so they may or may not register with you. Okay, so now we're just going to get down to advice. So if we've understood that people are jealous of this, that they're likely to be peers or people like you, they are people who aspire to your sort of lifestyle but don't necessarily have your courage, because that's what it really comes down to. Your courage and your dexterity, your pragmatism, your capacity to do this. And that maybe they sort of send this sort of subtle energy that affects some of your material outcomes, or they try and undermine your reputation. Knowing all of that, let's look at things that Spirit might suggest for you. So we're going to sort of start with just a general pull of a particular deck for what energy that Spirit is suggesting you think about. Then we're going to look at 2 spiritual supports for you, particularly around this spiritual thing. And then we're going to end up with some affirmations just to close out the reading. So firstly, let's look at the kind of attitudes or approach that Spirit recommends to you. Share wisdom and fate. Okay, so I think firstly, Spirit is saying one of your best defenses is that there is wisdom under what you do, that you aren't just erratic, that the reason that you can be so free and authentic is that you've done the work. And if somebody is trying to undermine your logic, share your wisdom, because you're going to win that argument. And if it's about making people feel insecure, then sharing wisdom about what they bring to the table compared to you, so that they can feel better about themselves, and or if it is, say, a lover who's worried about you moving on, share the wisdom of the fact that this is just about a dynamic of your life path. It's not necessarily the thing that's going to determine who you stay with and so forth. The other thing here, I think it's saying it's fate, and I think it's saying to some degree you are going to have this happen because of who you are, but you are strong enough to deal with it. And part of your fate, part of your life path this time around is to recognize these things. Because you have reached a level of self-actualization and capacity to take risk, you may think other people have, and they haven't necessarily. And part of your fate, part of your life path is to realize that if you do get further down the road than many people in something, that you've got to, in a sense, have that kindness and understanding about what's triggering this. It's a good way to learn for yourself and to know even more about yourself. So it's part of your fate. So let's look at what spiritual support you have. I'm going to use a couple of decks around that for you. So firstly, persuasion and influence. Oh, okay. So it's saying you have it all. You have it. You don't, once you've identified when this is happening, whether it's identifying the kind of sort of more subtle energies at the spiritual level or whether it's in the material thing, you have the capacity to persuade and influence others so that it doesn't destabilize you. The only thing for you is recognizing when it's happening. And on a spiritual level, if we're picking up some of this agitation that might be happening on a kind of emotional, spiritual level in your sleep or around others, you actually have the capacity to use spiritual boundaries, like to imagine boundaries, imagine white light, send energy out, all of those things. You're very advanced. This is why we got Neptune at the top there. You're able to deal with that. The only thing for you is to be aware of it. Once you're aware of it, people really can't get in the way for you. All right, let's see what sort of animal totems can also give you advice about dealing with this. Okay, so we have orca, song lines, and owl, wisdom. Okay, so the owl is saying take a wise approach. Take the approach that understands that jealousy comes from insecurity rather than anything else. But most of the time, that's what you're going to end up with. It's going to be just insecurity because of how far you've traveled. Take that wise and empathic approach and use that wisdom to influence others to help them get to where you're at. Like, in fact, the best thing you could possibly do to deal with jealousy is show people some of the signposts to get to where you are, because it's more, they'll be more free and less likely to be jealous if that's the case. And with song lines, this could be picking up, I mean, I think it's definitely picking up the Neptunian sort of psychic energy. That's why I'm saying if you kind of meditate and so forth and put boundaries, you'll do a lot for yourself because you're actually really able to do it. But I also think music in some way, music may help you get in touch with that. Music may be a way to express something to people. And if you are kind of more in an entertainment industry or something like that, then music is going to be important to your message and for people to understand who you truly are. Okay, last but not least, we're going to just ask for a couple of affirmation energies from the Crystal Chakra deck for you to take this information and knowledge that you have now and use it to your best and highest good. Root chakra and solar plexus. So firstly, this is about the foundations of the world, and I do think with that Ace of Pentacles, for some of you, there may be some very material things that are being impacted at the moment, and this is why we're getting the root chakra and the solar plexus. So the foundations of our life and the way that we express ourselves in the world. So what this is saying around the root chakra is one of the things that can help you is with red carnelian is stabilization and vitality. I think there's a bit of a hint here, particularly for those of you who are resonating to this, say being in a career, that there is, if your normal pattern is to come in, change things and then move on, that you may in fact be in a situation at the moment now where there's actually a lot of value in staying where you are and stabilizing something but revitalizing it in some way. And that could also be true of a love relationship, of friendships or whatever. I think it's a sign that it's not the moment to move on. All that would happen in whatever this scenario is that people will go, well, there you go, the person didn't stay. I think this is saying you can revitalize rather than needing to move on. The affirmations are, I invite stability into my life and I see the vitality in all things. So use that sort of skill in that way. Don't become a self-fulfilling prophecy of those who are jealous, who want to criticize you rather than respect what you're bringing to the table. Then over with the solar plexus chakra, we have golden calcite, and that's about leadership and self-worth. This is who you are. You are meant to be a leader in some form at whatever level you're at. The affirmations are, I take the lead of my own life. and I know my self-worth. And I think that's true of you. But I think that's why it's with the owl. I think there's a wisdom here of understanding you've gone further on this than most people have. People will be jealous of it, but the best way to deal with it is to bring them along on the journey and make them feel secure and revitalize the things around them rather than just saying, okay, I'm just going to shift on to the next or whatever. You can do that when you need to, and you can take the risks far more than other people. But if you really want to shine in your leadership and you really want some of that jealousy to turn around into admiration and a sense of security, that's the way to do it. So pile one, I hope that resonated for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome pile two to your reading. So these first cards are meant to give me an idea about what is it about you, what shines within you that makes people jealous, either right now or at various stages in your life. And also to some degree, given those energies, how people might try and turn that back or criticize or misrepresent and so forth. Because one of the most classic things that people do when they're jealous is that they take qualities that we have and then misrepresent them, like take away the intent or turn them into something that is not as shiny as a way to try and bring somebody down. So I'm going to be looking at both those things with this, and then we'll move to the tarot. You are a very powerful person, a very attractive person, a very groundbreaking and different sort of person who, there's some really interesting dynamics around this actually. So to start with the vampire and Capricorn here, I feel like the vampire here is, it's not that you're vampiric, that you're draining off other people. You're actually far too powerful as a person to do that. But you're very attractive. Like I think what we're picking up in this archetype is a very attractive person, very likely to be very physically attractive, but if not, you have a charisma, a kind of a fascination that you exert on people that draws people in, and people may get very jealous of the fact that you can walk in a room and everybody is going to be looking at you. There is something, and there is a depth. This is not a sense of it's just that you've got the best makeup and fashion, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not that. It's not just your appearance. So as I say, I think many of you are probably very good looking. It's something really deep in you with Pluto, something really deep, and something that speaks of power and speaks of understanding the world and so forth. Many of you may literally have come from or move into in your life positions of power in some way, possibly politically or within an organization, possibly with a cause or a community outcome with the LGBTQT here. That's a possibility as well. You are, as I say, you're very, very, you may be a little bit enigmatic about what your preferences are, potentially. People may project a lot on you. I think I get the sense of you're someone who people project a lot of fascination and a lot of attraction on. And you may, in fact, sometimes feel like people don't see you clearly. I'm getting that they see what they want to see. They project a whole, you may be the sort of person who attracts people who get a bit obsessive and so forth around you, because they're looking into that power and they're wanting to see what they want to see, so that validates something that they feel lacking in themselves. It's something like that going on. I think many of you, and some people may be jealous of that. They may think that you tend to be the one who attracts everybody, and why is that happening and so forth. But it's got to do with this intensity. You are intense. You would be one of those people whose gaze really holds people, like it, and it's natural to you. It's not some sort of affectation that you've put on. You're also open to transformation in all levels. Some of you may literally have transformed something about your gender identity or who you are, or you may be a bit chameleon-like, feel like a bit of a David Bowie type energy or something around you. Definitely that sort of thing. Some of you are incredibly powerful on a spiritual magic level with Pluto and mutable, the vampire. There's as a sense in the manifestation energy. So for some of you, you are very, very advanced in that area, and it's about transformation and it's about manifestation on a very occult level potentially, if that resonates for you. But whatever it is, you can go into the depths. You're really comfortable going into the depths. You're not afraid of that. And you are not afraid of transformation. You're not afraid of a cause, but you also have a good time sometimes. Some people may say that you're a player, or that, you kind of draw in people and so forth, that if they're jealous of your attractiveness, then they may try and make out that it's all very very much about pleasure and not about anything serious, but there is a very serious side to you. But I'm trying to say here some of the things that jealous people might say. Some might say that you're a political animal with this because you really do understand the powers of the world. So in your workplace or at university or college or even amongst your friends, people may take that ability that you have and try and make out that it makes you not trustworthy, for instance. They also don't understand, I think, that with Maui here, the discovery, which is a sort of Promethean character from the particular cultural background that this particular god comes from, that you are someone who's there to bring knowledge and understanding and transformation to others in much the same way as Prometheus did, bringing fire to mankind. But just as Prometheus was vilified by the gods for giving that away to people, giving that power away, you may be, in fact, I'm literally getting that for some of you, you may move into some sort of political or powerful realm and want to share power and share resources. And you may find a lot of jealousy comes from people about, well, two things. One, it's pure jealousy because you are very charismatic and you are very able to draw people into your cause. But secondly, I think it's people would see you as being a destabilising force, particularly those who were the old powers of the world, because you'll understand them, be able to deal with them, but they don't necessarily, they're jealously hoarding their toys, so to speak. They don't want other people to have the toys. So I think you'll get that. You'll get a pushback because you're truly about sharing this energy. And I think others are about maintaining their grip on it. So some of you are going to get a jealousy that is almost not so much about you, but trigger a jealousy of possessiveness that people have. And I am getting some of you will get very possessive energy towards you personally. So you've got a lot on your plate, pile two. You're very attractive, very powerful, very brave, very likely to be around power, able to enjoy yourself. And it may even be that if you were potentially working in, say, political office or whatever, some people might try and criticize you and say that you spend too much time enjoying yourself and on the party circuit, and you should be more doing, the material stuff. But part of your allure and part of what will make you powerful is your capacity to network and deal with other people. So, but for you, it's about sharing and about transformation. And for other people, it's more about competition. Okay, so you're an interesting person. So we're going to use tarot on two levels. The first one is to look at what you would see almost in the material obvious world, like the day-to-day world, things you might hear said, or the circumstances you might find yourself in, or the people that might be very overt in their reactions to you if they're jealous. Then we're going to look at the spiritual side, where it could be a sort of simmering resentment that's coming to you energetically. What might be the nature of that and how might you know that, before we go into some advice, well, more details about the people and then some advice about dealing with it. So firstly, Spirit, can we get some information for pile two about what are the sort of more obvious material manifestations that they would see when people are jealous of them, and why? Okay, so there's a couple of things that are showing up here, and I think it's showing the two levels that these energies show. So I think there's some people that get jealous of you around your romantic or personal attractiveness, and some that get jealous around the power, and the power's over on this side and the romantic is over on this side. So in the power side of things, when people are jealous of you, they're likely to present as though they're making you an offer. So it feels very political. It feels, whether it's literally politics or whether it's office politics, it feels as though when someone is jealous of you within the power structures that you're in, they're likely to kind of make an offer to you. They want to negotiate a kind of different approach. And what it's really about is they're threatened by the approach that you're doing. They're threatened by how well you could achieve something. So it could, in fact, come masked as a collaboration offer, but it's actually about trying to take you in a different direction and to take control of what that direction is. They're very clever. They speak with a forked tongue. The Seven of Swords can be the great negotiator, but it's also where things are tricky. There's something tricky in what appear to be offers. So I think because you are so charismatic and so compelling, there will be people who want to connect with you who are secretly jealous of you and who want to to use and manipulate and take advantage of some of those energies you have, but then control what happens so that they are the puppet master and you become the puppet. So you're the sort of person who could be the puppet master, but it's not really what you want to be. You're about helping people self-actualize and causes and so forth. But these people are very clever. They're very political themselves, and they will come as wolves in wolves in sheep's clothing, not the other way around. So they really are wolves, but they're pretending to be friends. But it feels like it's all around the powerful thing. So you need to be aware when people make offers to you to change course, and they speak very sort of eloquently about it, really look at it carefully and work out whether in fact it's a power play to try and gazump your innate power. Over around relationships, I do think that sometimes you get obsessive people around you. And sometimes you get people who won't let go. So there's jealousy around that coming to you from others who maybe think, well, that just makes you, so attractive. But I think that you might have jealousy from people in your personal life, different, like an ex might be very jealous about, where you are now and so forth. And what they're likely to do, how you're likely to see it, is in sort of trying to hold on or cling on to something by degree rather than just letting something go. This is why I feel like you probably get this sort of energy where people want to hang on to a relationship past the point that it's actually working. So it feels like a kind of resistance to change and a calling to your heart, like, your feel for me, all that kind of thing. But there's a jealousy, but it's a jealousy about either the next person you're moving on to, or it's a jealousy that you're able to do this because they feel much more that you are the center. And if they don't have you, then they're not worthy in some way. So it's interesting. And I think the two things could be quite connected sometimes. It might be partly because you are so adept in the realms of power and so forth that they feel as though relationship by association with you says something about them rather than what you would want for anybody, which is that they discover who they are, that they take the fire of who they are and become that. All right, so let's have a look at and these are the things where it's going to be quite obvious in the 3D. Now let's actually have a look at what could be happening on a spiritual level. If there are people who are off in the shadows feeling really jealous of you and resentful of you, and how that energy might be occurring and why. Oh my goodness, you really do attract obsession, like big time. I've got the devil over here with the tower. This is a lot of energy coming to you where jealousy is so it could be jealous friends around you who think you get all the sort of attractive people, or it could be jealous sort of people in a workplace who think that you get too much, but who are also obsessed with you. Like, you really do. This vampire energy is very, very strong. You have to be aware of that, Pole 2, because you don't mean to have these outcomes, but people get both jealous of it and kind of obsessed with it. And you'll feel it as an obsessive energy. Some people will be very, very untrue about stuff. People will lie. You will just get a sense like something that's not the full picture. You're not seeing the full information in some way. It seems to be too full on. You are the sort of person who people would fall for really fast, and you'd be thinking like, whoa, what's happening here? And then they'll get very jealous of your time. That's what the main jealousy feels like, actually. I mean, there may be some people who are jealous of you being attractive to others, but the main jealous energy around relationships is that people get jealous of anybody else being around you. It's much more possessive energy than anything. And it's not always that stable by the looks of things. You do need to be aware of the really powerful energy that you give off. It gets in the way, I think, of whatever is new that you want to do. When you want to break away in a relationship, when you want to do something new in work that is about you, it gets in the way of that. So you'll feel it. On one level, it will be through your mind. It'll be a kind of a sense of something's not quite right that you feel intellectually. I know that sounds almost counterintuitive to feel something intellectually, but what I mean is that sense that like something in your kind of reasoning faculties are going to be the first point of understanding that there's something a bit more subterranean going on here and there's energy coming through to you. Also, I'm getting electrical. I'm getting that some of that energy might come through comments or through emails or electronic media in some way, that you get the first inkling that there's this jealousy or this other issue going on. I also feel, and I in fact got this with one of the other readings, that you'll pick it up in dreams as well. It's a kind of a nervous tension that you'll get in dreams and so forth that will tell you. And it's almost like in the dreams nothing can be really achieved, nothing is finalized, nothing is brought into the material thing. I'm sort of getting the sense of dreams where you're sort of trying to find some food but you can't find the food, or you're trying to build something but it always seems to kind of crumble in some way. There's a sense like in dreams where things aren't manifesting in some way. That's where you start to get this nervous energy, and that possibly some of that simmering resentment, that kind of jealousy that's in the shadows, might be putting a circuit break on you really realizing things materially in some way. But I feel like it's more that I don't think this energy can stop you, to be frank, at all. And it'll be interesting what we get around the sort of spiritual protections and so forth. But I feel it's more that that's just to let you know something like that's happening, particularly if you want to do something new and someone is coming with a silver tongue to talk to you about something. You'll have a sense on a subtle level, and often through dreams or meditation or something, that there's something that's not quite right in what they're offering. So I think you've got a really great antenna. I think that you're all over this, really. So let's get some more characteristics of people who may either right now be jealous of you or jealous about you, and or maybe at some other time in your life because of the nature of your sort of power and allure. So we're just going to use different sort of decks that have personal characteristics, just to sort of see the sort of energy that they might have and what that might mean that they say or do as a result of their jealousy. Individuality. Okay. So one of the things that the people who are jealous of you, and I think it's particularly around career and personal presence and personal brand, is, it might be a little bit around relationships as well, but I think it's primarily, I think both of these are actually picking up more around career. They value in themselves being really individual, really different. And I think that you champion that cause. I think you champion inclusion and diversity. I think that you are part of that. But they would, if they got really drawn to you, they are likely to be jealous because it would get in the way of them feeling their individuality. They're not a follower. The people who get jealous of you in this thing are not followers. They want followers. And I think that they're jealous of the fact that you get followers. They're also likely to observe you in great detail and work out how to beguile you with the insouciance here and so forth, and the observation. So this is these people, I think. It's people in your career, your study, whatever it is that you're doing in your life at the moment, and they are clever. So be aware of that. They are clever, but they are not as powerful as you innately. And they are competitive as hell with size here. You know, how big the house is, how big the office is, you know, what kind of credentials a person has, how many people are attracted to them. It's all about size. It's all about that kind of thing for them. They're competitive on a very, very material way. Okay, and you will naturally bring a lot of things in that they're going to be jealous of, I think. So let's see what else we get. Okay, that blue throat speaker, calm, cool, makes sense. They're very much sword energy in tarot. They're very much in their mind. They're very clever, as I keep saying. You do have to be aware when people are trying to kind of persuade you, pay a lot of attention, because they want to either exploit some of your allure or they want to control you in some way. But they'll seem very calm. They'll seem very cool. They won't seem jealous because they're so detached, but they will be. We also have the monkey energy. This could be picking up people who are born in the year of the monkey, or the aspects of the monkey are things like they can be entertaining, intelligent, likely to be very witty, very clever. This is partly it. You naturally draw everybody to you when you walk in a room because there's just something about you. But these people like to be entertainers and they like to be seen and they like to be individual. So you'll know them. They're witty. They may be a lot of fun, actually. They'll seem optimistic, sociable and so forth. But they're also secretive. Also a bit unpredictable. The monkey is an interesting sign under Chinese astrology, and it kind of reflects, you know, some of the characteristics that we think of with a monkey. Very quick, very entertaining, but not necessarily reliable. Okay, let's see what archetype energy they may be displaying. Hot nerd. And clinger. Oh, okay. So this is picking up, I think, this is picking up this and this is picking up this. So over here we're seeing sort of someone who is also used to being really attractive. They may not be as in your face attractive as I think you are, but they are used to being attractive, maybe in a slightly quieter way and an individual way, but that's why they're going to be jealous of the vampire. Like the hot nerd is going to be jealous of the vampire energy that you have. And the clinger is this thing where people are jealous about you, so that you are going to have in your life people who cling to you, people who really want to be with you, but past the point where it's good for them or for you. So that's picking up both of those things, I think. All right. Lastly, let's just get some letters, just in case it picks up any people who are actually in your life at the moment. So X, I think that might be saying that for some of you that there'll be an X or one or more X's in your life that are picking up potentially maybe this energy or even this potentially. Oh yeah, XX. That's interesting. N, R, J, and Z. So we don't get words out of that, but I do think that some of these will be letters that might apply. But I think this is picking up the energy of sort of X's. I think you would have had quite a few clingy people who didn't want to let go and may still be, particularly on that more subterranean level, sort of sending resentment energy to you. So it's important to kind of think about pushing that away gently but firmly on an energetic level. Okay, so to help with some of that, we're now going to ask for Spirit's advice. So firstly, we're going to ask for the advice about the kind of energy that you should approach to best deal with people who are jealous of you or, in your case, about you. Nature, withdraw. Okay, it's interesting that they fell naturally on those two sides, because I feel like this side is almost the work and this side is the relationship. I think it is saying understand your nature. Don't change your nature, but also understand the nature of the person that you're dealing with. Because as I say, I feel like they're often going to be very clever, very witty, very fun to be around, and appear to be fantastic collaborators, but you really need to do your due diligence. If you look into the nature and it isn't duplicitous and it isn't competitive, then that's fantastic. You've found great people to work with. But if you look into their nature and you can see a pattern of manipulation, then you need to be wary, because they are trying to get through that manipulative ability they have, your natural charisma. Over here we have withdraw. I think it's just in situations where people get really obsessed with you, you just need to withdraw away from it. You can't fix that by going head on. Over here you probably can, because you are master of your own domain over here. But here there's a lot of emotion around it that has to do with projection and things like that. It really doesn't have to do with you. And much as you'd like to be Maui, bringing the sort of fire, bringing the enlightenment, I think this is saying around personal relationships it's better to withdraw, go no contact if that occurs. All right, let's have a look at some spiritual advice for you. Persuasion, it's interesting, that came up for another reading. Persuasion and sacred space. Okay, and again we're getting this sort of like the two sides of the coin here. So over here you can use your own persuasion, your own cleverness, your own charisma, your own wisdom, all of those things, and your own capacity to deal with transformation to persuade. If there is a battle for who is going to be top in this, you are going to win, because you have but only if you understand the nature of what you're dealing with. Because if you were beguiled and flattered, like these people will use flattery a lot. So, if you were flattered and you didn't really think about, is this legit, or is this something that they're trying to do to control me, then that could be an issue. But if you know what you're dealing with when you're dealing with people who are jealous, you have the capacity to persuade the group around it to not be swayed by their viewpoint. Over here, sacred space. Your heart is a sacred space. You are not required to love everybody back in the way that they love you. You aren't. You can love on a broader level, but ultimately you should be looking for the right person for you. And just because someone feels very needy around you and possessive of you, you need to make your heart and your your relationships your sacred space and make sure it's not just at the behest of others. Okay, let's get some animal totem energy for you as well. Fruit bat, flying fox, kindness. And deer, power. Okay. This to me, with deer being about power, fruit bat being about kindness, this is actually the absolute apotheosis of what someone like you needs to recognize and do. I often say with great power comes great responsibility. You do have great power, great personal power. Whether you realize it about yourself or not, as you go through life, you're going to realize it more and more and more. Great personal power. What comes with that is the need for the kindness. So it is a kindness to be authentic in relationships and to withdraw and let somebody move away and heal. It is a kindness that is driving you to try and transform and help other people, and that you need to understand that people who are trying to manipulate you are not equally kind. If you stay in that sort of sacred space of using your power in a kind manner, yes, people are going to project like hell on you, people are going to be jealous, but you're going to stay true to who you are. Okay, so let's finish off with some affirmations from the Crystal Chakra deck for you. Okay, we have the Sacral Chakra and the Sacral Chakra. Okay, so this is saying there's a lot about creativity here. So some of you, I've been talking a lot about politics and organisational power, but some of you it may be through creative things. If you do creative stuff, if you're an entertainer or a writer or an artist or something, again, you're going to be incredibly alluring. There's going to be something very arresting and transformative about what you do. But if you're in the more conventional politics sort of area, then there's something creative about what you do. And it's in your creativity that you'll find the key to deal with this, is what Spirit's saying. So firstly, with the Sacral Chakra, with Tangerine Quartz, it's about curiosity and playfulness. And remember, we had play as one of your qualities, so don't lose that in the midst of the intensity of your life, because there is going to be a lot of intensity around you. Playfulness helps. Curiosity helps. The affirmations are, I always feed my curiosity and I honour my inner child by being playful. So don't lose touch with that, because as I say, you are going to have a very intense life and are probably having it. And then over here with the carnelian, with the Sacral Chakra, it's about success and self-confidence. And I think you have that. And the more that you understand what's going on in these dynamics, you're not being manipulated by clever words or by emotional blackmail, you'll feel more confident and more able to step into your power. The affirmations are, I attract success into my life and I am confident in my decision making. And that's true of you, because you will be. You do know what you're doing. You do understand the world in a very, very real way. So pile 2, what brings jealousy to you is a bit of a blessing and a curse, because on one level it does mean that you are one of those really charismatic, arresting, fascinating people. It's a fascinating energy and you have a lot of good that you can do in the world, but you are going to draw a lot of intense responses. So being aware of that, being able to sit in that playful space, being curious, being confident in what you do, and really paying attention to what demands are being put on you or what offers are being put to you will help you navigate the jealousy that I do think that you're going to attract, but I think that you're more than capable of dealing with it. So I hope that that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome pile 3 to your reading. So these first cards here are meant to represent some of the ways in which you shine, some of the things that people could be jealous of. And I'm going to look at them both in that level, and I'm also going to be looking at, given that, what people who are jealous might try and misrepresent it as, because that often happens. So, if someone is very attractive physically, then people who are jealous could accuse them of being shallow when that's not actually true. But it's those sorts of energies, excuse me, that we want to try and pick up with this, as well as what it is about you. And there's like 3 things that jump out here. So all 3 may apply, or a couple, or only one, you'll know better. But one part of it is you're either very, very physically attractive, very tempting, very much like a siren, very sort of attractive physically, fiery, energetic. The tan complexion here, I think, is just that sense of physical beauty. And so it doesn't even have to be that you're tan. I think in the context of these sorts of cards in this layout, anything that's talking about complexion, looks or whatever is an indication that you're likely to be very good looking within your culture, or to the people that you're drawn to, or whatever it is. There's something very attractive about you. People probably fall in love with you pretty easily or romanticize you. So you're very tempting on that level with the 5th house, which can be about romance and love. And with sirens, sirens, literally the siren song drew the sailors to their death, unfortunately, because they were so beautiful and so tempting and so alluring. So there's definitely something like that for many of you. Also, I think that if it's not working in that way, or it could also be working in the way of high degrees of creativity. And I feel where that's the case, the Sagittarian energy, it sort of feels very fiery. It feels like painting. It feels like dramatic performance. It feels like that kind of sort of performance energy, possibly also sculpture or something. The tan almost feels earthy, so things that have a physical form in some way. Very tempting, very, very alluring. People really like it. So you could find that your creative ability brings quite a lot of jealousy to you about what you can create, your skill, because you're very skillful, and what you can create and bring out into the world could literally bring jealousy to you as well. The other thing that I think people feel jealous of is your strength, your capacity to deal with major change, and your capacity to deal with the depths of things with Medusa there. You might scare some people, actually. It may be that sometimes the jealousy actually presents as scary, that you seem like very unpredictable, very mercurial in some way, and particularly, as I say, if you are creative, or if this is playing out in the romance sort of area. With the Medusa energy, the reality about Medusa is that she was once a very beautiful goddess, and then she became the creature that turned people to stone. So there's an interesting connection, actually, I'm getting here, between sirens, which great attractiveness drew the sailors to their depths, and Medusa, who had the great beauty, but then became the person who could turn somebody to stone just by looking at her. I do think that some of you are very attractive, very arresting, but people are a bit frightened of it and a bit frightened of you, that you would cut people dead. And so I don't think you actually would do that, because down here with Jizo, who is a kind of Bodhisattva energy, Japanese Bodhisattva energy, which is all about support and compassion, and here you have the skill. I think that a lot of what scares people about you is your skill, your ability, your attractiveness, but you wouldn't actually draw somebody to their death or turn them to stone. But people do find you very revolutionary, very different, and a little bit frightening. And I think people who are jealous could use that. So as I was saying, I also wanted to look at these cards about what people might say if they were jealous and they wanted to somehow rein in what you had. And I think some would say you were an ice queen or king. You're the sort of person who draws people in but doesn't connect. Because if you have a lot of people around you who are interested, you're not going to be interested in all of them in the same way. So I think, some people might say you're a player potentially, or something like that as well. I'm not saying any of this is true. This is the sort of stuff where the true thing of you, the attractiveness and the compassion and so forth, and the romanticism and idealism of the 5th house is being misrepresented. So some may say that you are a bit of a femme fatale, or the male version of that, or wherever you sit on the spectrum. It's just the kind of concept I'm talking about here. They may say that you are flirtatious, and you're all about the kind of the sort of love games, and not kind of really stabilizing something. They could say you're someone who would break up relationships. You could actually have got quite often issues with your friends if you were around their partners, that you may be too attractive, and you might be a very, very disruptive energy. So there's something in this about the power of attraction that you have, and the fear that it evokes. So a lot of this jealousy comes from fear. The interesting thing being, as I say, you're actually very supportive. You're actually very kind. But when people are jealous, they're not going to be seeing that. They're just going to be projecting their fears on you. So let's use the tarot to get a bit more detail about this. So we're going to start firstly with what, in terms of jealousy, you would see in the material world. The things that would be obvious, the slights that you hear about, the competition in work, the people sort of looking to sort of cut off options for you, or talk badly about you, or any of the sort of things where we know it's happening. And then we're going to look at the spiritual level, where there could be kind of secret jealousy that's a simmering spiritual energetic energy, and what that looks like and what you can do about it. So starting first with what would be really obvious to you in the material world. Okay. So firstly, the first thing I'm getting is that many of you might have had a lot of critique from your family, from your mother and father potentially. It looks as though on that level you may have already sort of dealt with sort of something where there was a very strict idea about what it was to be a good, loyal partner and what it is to be right in the world and good in the world. And I think there's a sense of a lot of you being in families where the parental control was very controlling. And someone like you would be like the truth teller in a narcissistic family, for instance. Someone like you would be a bit incendiary in that. So I'm getting that some of you saw this very young. And part of what it did was to try and control the burgeoning creativity and freedom and self-expression that you had. I'm actually getting that for some of you, there may even have been some limitations on what you could study, the support that you would get materially and so forth if you didn't follow the rules. So a classic thing might be if your family decided you have to be a lawyer and you wanted to be on the stage and screen, they're not likely to have supported that and encouraged that materially or otherwise. But if that's the case, it's almost as though what would be happening is that you could be potentially living out or have the potential to live out something that one or other of them would have liked to do but felt that they couldn't because they were really conventional. So there's definitely that sort of sense for some of you. For others, this could be friends or co-workers or managers that you're around at the moment. And where you will know because the judgments will be made and they will be said. Like it doesn't feel in this material thing, whether it's around your access to resources, education, and or sort of recognition, that you're going to be in any doubt about it. There looks like there are people who have their own sense of what is right in the world and they will be very clear in their judgments. And they are likely to reflect back some of that sort of jealousy in the way that I was talking about it. But it's likely to manifest with cutting up options to develop, options to express yourself. So if you, for instance, were an artist and you were around certain people in the industry who said, you've got to do this sort of art, and if you do anything else, it's not commercial, it's not this, it's not that, and they judge you, then there is a degree to which your strength and your very individual approach to things and your skill is actually threatening them in some way. So no, that's just an example of it. If it's around friendships, for instance, and it's in the romantic side, then people are likely to try and bring you down around, what your skill level is, what your knowledge level is, like take you down a peg or two, judge what you do, reflect that kind of thing. So because you scare people try and get a preemptive strike in. And I think it's probably happened since you were young and you're very aware of it. So let's look at what you might not be as aware of, the kind of, as I say, simmering resentment that can be jealousy from a distance when people aren't making it obvious, that you might pick up on a subtle energetic level. This has a very similar feel, actually. I think there's not a lot of difference between what might be happening sort of spiritually, energetically, and what you're actually seeing. I think you are the sort of person, because of the level of power that you exude around drawing people in and the fear that evokes. It's almost like you're going to know most of this. It may be that there are versions of it also operating around other people that aren't showing their hand, but I think you've got a really good sense of it. With the sun here, I think that you're very clear. You understand yourself and you understand what's occurring. And what we're seeing, again, particularly kind of female type of energies, and that doesn't have to be gender specific in terms of biology, but people who have feminine aspects, it does look as though there's at least one woman or feminine energy around you who feels in a sort of simmering way that you've got the spotlight. I feel like she feels you're up here with this sort of flaming red hair and the fiery bow and arrow and everything, and that she should be there. And whether that is, for some of you, this may be a pattern from your mother. You may be in a freer world than possibly she was for women getting ahead. And so there's, if you're a woman, or whatever it might be. It just might be that you're actually doing something she would have liked to have done, or it could be a friend. But there's definitely a sense that there's at least one person, and they may not show it to you. They look, in fact, like they're quite closed in on a material sort of level. They don't show their hand about what this really means. And if it's in a workplace, they're not being as overt about it as maybe some other people might be. They want to rein in what is new about you. They don't want you to get the recognition. I mean, this is the feeling I'm getting. I feel like the main way that you see jealousy is people who either right in your face in some way or subtly, energetically, want to reduce the capacity for you to get recognition. But I think, they're destined to not be able to do it. The sunlight goes on the judgment here. That I think that the sunlight proves that you are more this supportive person who just happens to be very, very skillful at what you're doing and drawing people in with your creativity and your individuality. But it's about recognition. You will know on both levels. If you overtly feel that and have felt that, then yes, that is jealousy. That's where it comes from. And if it's sometimes you're not really sure where it's coming from because you're not getting something as much in your face, but you're doing stuff that's really good, but somehow materially and in terms of the industry you're in or whatever, you're not getting the recognition, there is someone who is breaking the circuitry on a kind of more subtle level around it as well. So someone, and like, I do think that sort of person would not want to face the Medusa. So it is likely to be done on that subtle sort of level. So let's get a little bit more information about the types of people who might be jealous of you, because this might identify people who are in your life at the moment who you've had that suspicion about, or it just might be a type and why these personality aspects would be likely to be jealous of you. Okay, all right. It's interesting. This one came up in another one, so some of you may be coming to a couple of readings. This person is highly sensitive and highly fearful. The people who are jealous of you are a bit afraid of you. I've said it right from the beginning. It is there, and they're highly sensitive. They feel like dealing with that degree of power coming at them is really threatening in some way. But they're likely to say you're insensitive. They're likely, as I say, to say you're the ice queen or king. They're likely to say that you're sort of into the battle rather than the caring. And it's not true, because you are actually very supportive. But the way that they reflect that jealousy back is to see you as a Medusa, I think, more than anything. And I think what it's doing is innately showing their own innate destructiveness. There is a Medusa side to them in the other side of the myth, which is destructive. They are potentially capable of malice. I feel like there's at least one around you where that is possible. You will know because they try and short circuit it, as I say, or cut away the resourcing and capacity for something to grow. It's a destructive energy. It's a negative energy. You will know them by that. Let's see what else we've got. Beige and black. Okay. So firstly, these people who are jealous of you, some of them are just jealous of you because you are far more alluring and far more sort of colourful and creative than they will ever be. They're quite conservative. I do think some of that might have been the case in family upbringings or school or something like that, the early years of your life where you saw a pattern of this. They will claim to be neutral and dependable. They may say that you're not. They may say that you're a bit too quicksilver, you're a little bit too sort of rapidly moving or something, a bit too Uranian and sort of revolutionary, and they are likely to want everything in its place and everything looking the right way and so forth, and to be very judgmental. Could be conservative politically too. Don't have to be. That's not to say that everybody who's a conservative political type is beige and all that kind of thing, but I'm just getting that for some of you there might be something like that. It might be a political difference if you are not in the conservative end of the scale. They want to be powerful and mysterious like you. They want to intimidate. They want to be influential. I don't think they are. I think we're seeing a projection operating here, and they want what you have. That's why they're destructive. It's like, if I can't be the mysterious leader, then I'll pull everything down. And that's the kind of energy that's coming off them. Let's see the archetypes that fit them. Mystic. Gypsy soul. Okay, that's interesting. So it does suggest that neither you nor these people, by and large, are in conventional sort of workplaces, conventional sort of life, conventional study. If you are, then they have a soul that wants to be more free and different and creative and so forth, and a little bit sort of mystical and freedom-loving and gypsy-like. And they're jealous because maybe they think that you've somehow managed to do that more in whatever this more conventional environment is that you're in, if that's the case. They don't want to be this conventional person, really. They really want to be free and so forth, and that's how they want to see themselves. But I think that they're a bit afraid and so forth. But they may be, see, this is why I think it's important to be aware, and the spiritual stuff that we'll talk about a little bit later around how to protect yourself and so forth, because I think they might have some real psychic ability. At least one of them might. Feels like there's at least one, you know, as I say, female energy, and you know, it doesn't have to be a woman, but that kind of energy, which is actually quite powerful in their own way. They are more like, they almost meet you power for power, but they're more straitjacketed in, and that's why they get destructive, because they're not able to fully become who they want to be, and they resent because they think that you have in some way. They also may think that you're much freer than them, and they don't like that. They want to be the freedom people. All right, so let's also look at some other like personal characteristics in their lives. Okay, narcissistic, fire sign. Oh yeah, see, it's your dramatic sort of side of things that they get jealous of, because they want to be that person. They want to be the gypsy soul, and to some degree they probably are. It's just that I think they see you as having gone further or being threatening to that in some way, and they do want it all to be about them, and they feel like it's all about you. So they resent that. That doesn't need a lot of explanation, really. That kind of fits with this sort of energy. And I said there could be, in fact, narcissistic patterns from even your family or potentially friendship circle as well. Okay, let's get some initials in case that tells you a little bit about one or more people in your life that you may be thinking could fit this. So we've got I, E, N, L, V, M. This is funny because it doesn't actually literally spell it, but when I look at these letters, it's almost like villain in a different spelling. Like I do think for some of you, there really is someone who's bad news around you, and you do need to be aware of them. I suspect you are. Beyond that, I think this is just probably initials that may or may not register for you. Okay, so if we've worked out that kind of energy and the sort of people, what advice does Spirit have for you? So we're going to start firstly with a couple of cards around the sort of attitude or approach to take to deal with the jealousy that is directed towards you. Okay, sacred sexuality and strength. So this does suggest that quite a bit of this is coming up through love and so forth, and I think all that Spirit is saying is to keep that sacred and not to let that kind of energy, convention, restriction or whatever get in the way and so forth, to keep that sort of thing sacred and not to compete back. I'm getting that if a lot of this is coming out in your love life and all that sort of thing, if someone is trying to prove they're more attractive than you, don't get caught in some sort of cycle of trying to prove anything. Keep all of that very sacred to yourself, and remember that you're strong. Remember that what's operating here is fear, because people are afraid of you. They think you're very attractive, but they're very afraid of you as well. Okay, so let's get some spiritual support advice. Glamour magic, wow. And moon magic, okay. So with your Uranian energy, that Medusa and so forth, this is suggesting that you actually have very powerful magic yourself. Though I think that there's at least one person who does as well around you that is potentially a competitor in some way. So be aware of that. But certainly if you were to look into different types of magic, you would be a natural at it. You have the power and the energy to do it. The interesting thing about glamour magic, and there's a lot to it, but one of the things about glamour is the capacity to be invisible when you need to be. So I think that this is probably saying something like being able to if you are getting energy in particular sent to you spiritually, consciously or not, and I think for some of you there may be someone who's sending it consciously, making yourself almost invisible with sort of like energy, light and so forth, creating a sort of safe space for yourself where that can't be reached because you literally can't be found, could help you. And moon magic is connecting to the cycles of the moon and understanding the waxing and waning of some of the emotional energy around all of this and using those energies as positively as possible. But that's, of all the readings I've done, this is the strongest for using magic, spiritual things. And I felt also the strongest where there was actually more of an issue to deal with, not just an anxiety, but potentially at least one person who is either intentionally or just that they just are so jealous that that negative energy is coming towards you. So very much draw on your strength and your ability to protect yourself, to hide yourself in a way and to regulate your own emotions around it. Okay, let's see what animal totem advice there is for you. Tiger, will, so that's your strength. Don't lose your strength. And cat, intuition. Okay. So this is doubling down on the fact that you will pick all this up. You are very, very psychic. You are very, very able to pick this sort of stuff up and to deflect it and send it back and so forth if you need to. But pay attention to your intuition. You're not going to be wrong. You're not being conceited if you think that people find you a bit intimidating, because they do. But keep in touch. This strength, will, tiger. I feel like tiger is actually a really strong thing. It's interesting that they're both, feline energies. So I think there's something about feline energies around you, tigers, leopards, cats, lions. I think, that kind of thing to kind of evoke that sort of energy within yourself, I think is quite powerful. And I'm getting that, on top of Sagittarius, some of you may have Leo strong potentially. That kind of Leonian sort of energy could be important in owning your own power. Okay, so lastly, let's get some chakra affirmations for you. So these are just kind of to round out the reading and about things to remind yourself of or to feel into so that you can deal with any of the sort of jealousy coming your way. The root chakra and the sacral chakra. So to me, for a start, root chakra and sacral chakra together says that you are innately creative. There is something very creative about this energy. It is part of who you are. It is part of how you have a foundation in life. And do not let anybody push you into the conventional or into sort of like more restrictive, approaches that don't honour that. Find a way to honour it and still meet your sort of material needs and so forth. It's going to be important to you, and don't let people manipulate you because they're jealous of you. The root chakra here is with Ruby, and it's all about spontaneity and motivation. So we've got, I feel motivated to achieve my goals and I allow myself to be spontaneous. So I do think that many of you have had a lot of programming people have tried to put into you, things to sort of make you fit molds or lessen yourself or feel that if you're looking for recognition, you're just being up yourself or something, and it's not true. Allow yourself that spontaneity, allow yourself that motivation, and then that takes you to the creativity. And with tangerine quartz, we have curiosity and playfulness. So it says, I honour my inner child by being playful and I always feed my curiosity. That also came up in another reading, I think. So there is a connection for some of you between a couple of readings, I think. But this is really saying that you just need to kind of lighten up almost and enjoy and follow what you want, because you are going to threaten some people, but really, that's their problem if that's the case. And you have enough magical power and spiritual power and will and strength and intuition to deal with that. You don't really have to be worried about it. You just need to be aware of it. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 3, and I hope it was helpful. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.